Hello and welcome to Wyrd Wessex. My name is Craig.
And I'm Andy.
What are we talking about today, Andy?
Today we're taking a tour of the south of England and its most notorious witches. Control of the body, control of the limbs, and with a knack for all herbs. All these were traits of the witch, according to folklorist Kathleen Wiltshire from Wiltshire, actually. Trees, she says, groves, springs, and crossroads and river boundaries were all their holy places. Whether gathered around the standing stones, dancing barefoot under the full moon, hidden by velvet robes in some secret part of the forest, or butt naked in the high priest's living room with a pentagram drawn on the floor.
And hopefully with the heating on.
Perky. Today's magical practitioners owe a debt to the witches of Wessex, for this is where it all started.
Yes, and very quickly, so we owe a debt to my wife, Emma, who has written this script for us today. She's used quite a long list of sources, which I do have, but rather than list them here, what we'll do is we'll pop them all down in the episode description.
Yes, thank you, Emma.
We have the old stories just like any other place. Mrs. Wiltshire from Wiltshire writes that witches in this area were considered particularly dangerous to horses, riding them out to coven meetings and messing with their hair. So much so that in Allington, it was thought to be unsafe to let a horse stay out in the field on the edge of the downs at night, or you might come out in the morning to find that their manes were ragged and tangled. In Ralph Whitlock's The Folklore of Wiltshire, he has the usual shape-shifting story you find everywhere. There's one from our own village, where a young couple are followed by a greyhound whenever they go out together, only to find when a sudden rainstorm sends the dog running home ahead of them that the girl's mother has suspiciously wet feet.
Lydia Shears was the winter slow witch. The local said that if you gave her tobacco, she'd help you with the hair coursing by making hairs easier to catch. One farmer was convinced she was taking on the shape of a hare, teasing his dog, and was advised by the village priest to make a silver bullet from a 6-penny piece to shoot the hare with. And when they did, they found the witch dead in her cottage with a silver bullet in her chest. In Sedgemoor, where Somerset and Wiltshire meet, there was a witch who stopped the butter from churning and cursed the village with a plague of fleas. Running from an angry mob, she decided to fly up the chimney but forgot to remove her nightdress first. When she took off to escape into the night, it fell burning onto the thatch. Once she was gone, they turned the remains of the house into an inn and called it the Burnt Smock Farm. Though that is gone too now, sadly.
Fear of witches dates back to the late medieval period. In 1486, Heinrich Kramer published the Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of Witches, recommending that sorcerers be burnt at the stake for heresy.
We didn't burn him!
Kramer was considered to be a little bit weird about women, and it's easy to see why. He claimed that women are more likely to be tempted by the devil than men due to their weaker and more carnal natures, and that it was quite normal for them to perform sexual acts with demons. All women for Kramer are actually doomed to eventually become witches because of their insatiable lust. This was too much even for the Catholic Church, with one bishop calling him senile and crazy. Unfortunately, in a culture where people were genuinely frightened of the idea that heretics were trying to bring down society and that witches were trying to steal your penis, his book did well. And by the 1600s, after King James came to the throne and tightened up the Witchcraft Act, hanging innocent women who definitely were not witches really took off. Got a reference back to stealing penises again. We've just done a short on that.
It's all back where it started. Hi, Jimmy. In 1645, Goody Orchard, an old woman from Malmesbury, came to a brewer's house to ask for yeast. The daughter of the brewer, 10-year-old Mary, refused her and heard the old woman mutter a curse as she walked away. The girl's hands seized up, and Goody was charged with witchcraft, doing herself no favours at all at her trial when she said that the girl's malady was down to bad water and offered to cure it with a spell. That's not going to go down too well. A few decades later, in 1672, young Mary, now Mary Webb, was at it again, accusing 3 women of trying to harm her children with magic after her son Thomas fell ill and claimed he saw the spectral figures of Elizabeth Peacock, Judith Witchell, and Anne Tilling above his bed. Mary confronted Anne Tilling in the street, who immediately fell to her knees and confessed, claiming that the other 2 women and many more were part of a coven. Several other dominant families in the town accused the Malmesbury coven of causing the sudden deaths of some of their children and horses, although Elizabeth Peacock was the only one charged with murder by witchcraft. Despite locals believing that Elizabeth was the leader of the group, she was acquitted. The judge said that if she refused to confess, there was not enough evidence to hang her. The other 2, however, Anne and Judith were convicted on the basis of their almost certainly forced confessions and executed.
By 1682, things were slowing down, and the last few hangings in England were those known as the Bideford Three. These were three women who lived in the town of Bideford in Devon. Their names were Temperance Lloyd, Mary Trembles, and Susanna Edwards. Susanna Edwards was accused of making a woman sick while begging for food. During her trial, she was seen wringing her hands nervously, and the man questioning her accused her of trying to perform a spell, to which she apparently replied, "Well enough, I will fit thee." And not long after, the man was overcome by a fit of shaking, shouting to the court,
"I am bewitched by the devil."
Mary Trembles was also accused of causing sickness while begging, but confessed, claiming that Edwards had initiated her. Trembles said that she had asked Edwards how she became a witch, and Edwards had replied that a man wearing clothes of all black had offered that she would never be in want if she only did one thing for him. But then when she asked what it was, he disappeared. Edwards has also allegedly confessed to Mary Trembles that she had sex with the devil 4 times. When questioned on this, Susanna Edwards said that she herself had been initiated by a third woman, Temperance Lloyd.
Temperance Lloyd was accused by shopkeeper Thomas Eastchurch of making his sister-in-law Grace fall ill. Because when Lloyd was told the woman had recovered, she acted so happy and relieved that they were instantly suspicious and asked the town constable to arrest her. She was charged with having used some magical art, sorcery, or witchcraft upon the body of Grace Thomas, and to have had discourse or familiarity with the devil in the likeness or shape of a black man. Black in this case referring to the man's clothes. Thomas's wife Elizabeth gave evidence at her trial, claiming that she confronted Lloyd after finding 9 pinpricks on her knee, and that Lloyd had admitted to pricking a piece of leather 9 times to magically cause the wounds, and that Lloyd had confessed to stealing a doll and putting it under their bed, but that she had done no magic with it.
Another witness claimed to have overheard Lloyd confess that she was visited by the man in black in the form of a bird, and that had seen a magpie at Grace Thomas's window that day. The same witness also said that Lloyd had told her that the black man had come to suckle on her extra teats. These teats were discovered during Lloyd's interrogations, onlookers declaring that in her secret parts 2 teats hanging nigh together, like unto a piece of flesh that a child had sucked. These witch marks, somewhere between a love bite and a third nipple, were thought to be proof that the witch had contact with the devil and his demons. Although, just to put in here, having read quite a few accounts of this, it could be something as little as a mole, if they wanted it to be. Lloyd told her accusers that she was still under the protection of the black man, and admitted to the charges against her, as well as claiming to have killed 3 people and blinding a woman in one eye. And despite the fact all these confessions were either tortured out of them or overheard, the 3 women were found guilty, and on the 25th of August 1682, they were hanged, and their bodies were dumped unconsecrated ground, which later became a car park. Although that is good enough for kings as well, I guess. So
I don't think the king intended to be in a car park.
no, I'm just saying, it's good company.
It's unlikely that anyone accused during the witch trials actually considered themselves to be in league with the devil. They were largely either poor and begging, mentally ill, or victims of either hysteria, misogyny, or neighbourly grudges. So, where are all the witches? Were all those who were arrested completely innocent? There were some who fit the picture of the witch, men and women skilled in astrology, charm making, divination, herbal remedies, whose gardens were thick with mugwort and hellebores, foxgloves and feverfew, and whose bookshelves held grimoires full of charts and symbols. These were the cunning folk. They were still not witches. They were operated within a Christian framework, and many of their spells were protections against witchcraft, but they did make a living from practicing folk magic.
I think it depended on who you knew, really, wasn't it, as well? Because you have something that someone would be executed for, then that person's John Dee involved in the court of Queen Elizabeth I, and it's suddenly okay again because it's okay, he's one of ours, But yeah, if you were living in Fisherton anger and you wanted to find something lost, know the name of your future husband, remove a curse, the local cunning woman, Anne Bodenham, was there to help. It was said that she had taught local children to read, knew which days were lucky or unlucky, and could cure almost any disease. When Anne was 80, a maid from Manor House of Richard Goddard came to Anne and paid her 7 shillings to find some gold pieces lost by her master. Anne gave her a charm made from yellow paper in the shape of a cross and conducted a ritual in front of her. She laid a green glass on the book and placed within the circle of an earthen pot of coals, wherein she threw something which caused a very noisome smell, and so calling Beelzebub, Tormentor, Satan, and Lucifer to appear. There suddenly arose a very high wind which made the house shake, and presently, the back door flying open, there came 5 spirits, in the likeness of ragged boys, some bigger than others, and ran about the house where she had drawn the staff. And the witch threw upon the ground crumbs of bread, which the spirits plucked up, and leapt often over the pan of coals in the midst of the circle, and a dog and a cat of the witches danced with them.
Anne was arrested after she was accused by a woman who was already on trial for trying to murder her own daughters with arsenic that she claimed had been given to her by Anne, after Anne had allegedly tried to force the woman to make a pact with the devil. She was duly executed upon the discovery of her extra teats. Anne had been taught her craft by John Lamb, a cunning man who practiced in London, charging £40 or £50 for his services. Accused by many of black magic, one story claims that he demonstrated his powers to an audience in his living room by conjuring a miniature tree and 3 miniature woodsmen to chop it down. One of the witnesses tried to take the wood chips as evidence, but they attracted violent storms to his own house, and so he threw them away. So in 1628, John was accused of raping a child, but because of his cunning craft had helped some prominent political figures at the time, he escaped arrest until a mob of angry Londoners stoned him to death outside of a theatre.
Wow. I mean, this is all pretty grim, or pretty, it's all people getting accused. And so what, if cunning folk were just providing the service, who were the first real witches? The crystal waving, tree bothering, tarot reading sort of witches. Well, it probably started in Christchurch, actually, quite close to me, a small town between Bournemouth and the New Forest, with the Crotona Fellowship in the 1920s. Now, this is an offshoot of the Freemasons. The Crotona Fellowship was a small group who met up in the local pub to discuss esoteric subjects, and it's thought that some of them considered themselves to have been witches in a past life. In the 1920s, anyone interested in the esoteric would have been exposed to a diet of theosophy, yoga, spiritualist mediums, James Fraser's ideas about fertility cults and solar deities, and more. It was in the words of Cecil Williamson, who we'll get onto later, a golden age for the occult-minded. Berlin, Paris, London, Rome, each and all welcome home for those who did strange things in strange places. This is also the heyday for the witch cult hypothesis.
The witch cult hypothesis was adopted by a small group of 19th and 20th century scholars who believed that there was good evidence, there wasn't, that the early modern witch trials had been an attempt to stamp out a pre-Christian religion, whose members worshipped a horned god of fertility and death. At the time, it was believed that folk traditions such as Morris dancing and Christmas trees were pagan in origin, and that rural areas of Britain had continued their heathen ways in secret long after the coming of Christianity. Marinating in this alternative culture of the time, a small group of middle-class, middle-aged women who most likely met at the Crotona Fellowship became the New Forest Coven. We don't know exactly who was in it or how deeply some of them were involved, and it may not even have really existed as an actual group. More just a collection of people that influenced and inspired the father of modern witchcraft, Gerald Gardner. In fact, it may not have existed at all, and was potentially an invention by Gardner and others in an attempt to legitimize an emerging neo-pagan tradition.
Just on that, you get some very interesting elements of Wicca that say you have to have a lineage of Wicca. Now, that can mean an actual biological parent, or quite often it means someone in your coven has to have been in a coven that is connected to the original Gardner one, and it's very weird and elitist in my mind, but yeah, I found that quite interesting. That sounds like Gardner kind of set that up himself, saying, oh no, I was taught it by real witches,
Yeah.
But
It's the same as if you want to join the Facebook group, the Cult of the Weird. You actually need
That's it.
someone on the inside to let you in.
That's it. It's until you've been initiated, no one speaks on there.
Which is why no one speaks on it. We haven't been initiated yet. We're not sure
Yeah,
how
that's
that
it.
works.
Yeah, it's so.
If anyone
so-
knows, let us know.
It's such a secretive cult, such a secretive society. Not even we know how to do it. Not even we know how to be initiated.
Weird.
Very weird. Old Dorothy, assumed to be Dorothy Clutterbuck, which is a phenomenal name, was allegedly the high priestess of the New Forest Coven, responsible for Gardner's initiation in September 1939. She was a prominent figure in the local area, but had no connection to any of the occult societies at the time. In fact, some historians believe that Gardner only implicated Miss Clutterbuck as some kind of joke. Others have interpreted poetry from
Going in.
absolutely.
Interpreted.
It's a new word. It's a new word. It's a Dorset dialect. So, from some of her diaries having a pagan flavour, though there is no real evidence that she even knew Gardner, and that he was anything other than a committed Christian until the end of her life. Catherine Oldmeadow was a close friend of Dorothy's, a writer whose work was heavily influenced by romantic poetry.
That sounds like a euphemism or something, doesn't it? He
Close
was an old friend of Dorothy.
Old friend of Dorothy. Ah, look at you, old friend of Dorothy. Is that like
Yeah.
long-haired friend of Jesus? Catherine Oldmeadow was a close friend of Dorothy's, a writer whose work was heavily influenced by romantic poetry and fairy lore. Though again, there is no real evidence that she wasn't a good Catholic. Her descriptions of the New Forest show a writer with a deep spiritual connection to the natural world. Great deep glades, where the beech leaves lay like fairy carpet of magic colours, and scarlet and orange and yellow toadstools grew all ready to be spread for some elfin feast. The bracken was baby forest of golden trees, and across the purple-brown, autumn-scented heather, big spiders were spinning shining silver webs in the sunshine. It was the greatest fun getting ready for the night, though it was not like the night at all, with a moon swinging like a great silver lantern over the forest, and the only darkness lying in the shadows of the holly trees, which stood around the caravan like armed soldiers, their sober, prickly old heads crowned with yellow-tinted wreaths of honeysuckle.
Irene Leon Clark was an artist and costume designer and another member of the Crotona Fellowship, as well as being a member of the ancient Druid Order. It's thought that not only did Irene introduce Gardner to the order, but might have been the source of a large ritual sword that is still in use in the Gardenian Wiccan tradition today. Probably the most important for our story, at least, is the woman Gardner called Daffo. It's thought that this Daffo was actually Edith Woodward Grimes, an elocution teacher from Yorkshire. Born in 1887, she moved to Christchurch in 1938 and became an active member of the Crotona Fellowship and its associated theatre. Though the details of her involvement aren't clear, she may have been the first true Wiccan high priestess, the high priestess of the Bricket Wood Coven. Unlike the New Forest Coven, the Bricket Wood Coven definitely existed, and it's where Wicca started. In a rebuilt 16th century house nestled on the grounds of a small nudist colony, it's here that the rites and rituals that any pagan would recognise were developed. Gardner's witches experimented with binding, scourging, dancing, folk and ceremonial magic, devotional practices, and seasonal festivals that became the wheel of the year we all know and love today.
Now, interestingly, Bricket Wood Coven is sort of near my old stomping grounds of Hertfordshire. So I'm kind of moved from one place with a connection to this to the other. But there is still a nudist kind of group there. Actually, I was actually invited there once by a practicing witch who goes there and gets nude and does their thing. So yeah, it's still going strong. Uninterested in making pacts with the man in black, and not solely concerned with the practical applications of magic, Gardner's witches focus on developing a spiritual relationship with nature through the worship of a horned god and a moon goddess. In his book Witchcraft Today, Gardner said that, "I've been told by the witches in England, write and tell people that we are not perverts. We are decent people, and we only want to be left alone. There are certain secrets you mustn't give away. So after some argument as to exactly what I must not reveal, I'm permitted to tell much that has never before been made public concerning their beliefs, their rituals, and their reason for what they do. To that aim, in the 1950s, Gardner was seeking more publicity for the new religion, and in 52, Dafoe, who wanted to keep a low profile, left after a local paper ran a Halloween story warning that covens led by priestesses were engaging in black magic, sacrificial, and sexual rites in temples. Most of her family were strict Christians, and she later denied any involvement in witchcraft other than passing interest.
Gardner's next high priestess became his most well-known. Born in Surrey in 1923, Doreen Valiente, who I think probably doubled as a vampire hunter.
With a name like that, you've got it really, haven't you?
They had a lifelong interest in the occult. While living in Bournemouth, she met Gardner and helped him to create much of the early Wiccan poetry and liturgy, creating much of what later became the Book of Shadows, the ritual book for the group. She played a leading role in forming the first pagan organisations in Britain and became a prolific writer. In 1957, Doreen, like Dafoe before her, lost patience with Gardner's publicity seeking and left his coven for a smaller, more private group, believing that they should be as invisible to the newspapers as possible and only promote Wicca through books. In her 1975 book, Natural Magic, she says, "It would not be an exaggeration to say that a revival of magic has taken place. On the other hand, all kinds of charlatanry have been enabled to flourish, and of course the hustlers have moved in, determined to get their hands upon every possible pound or dollar available in this great new bonanza. It is partly as a protest against this latter tendency that this book has been written. I wanted to show people that magic is for all, as nature is for all. Magic indeed is all around us, in stones, flowers, stars, the dawn, wind, and the sunset cloud. All we need is the ability to see and understand."
After Doreen had left the Bricketwood Coven, Gardner instructed his latest high priestess to initiate anyone who asked into the craft, and before long they had totally lost track of the number of covens and initiates. Wicca was an international sensation, with covens starting to pop up in Canada, the US, and all over Britain. Doreen later ended up working with Robert Cochrane, a rival of Gardner's from Slough, who had started his own witchcraft tradition in the early 60s, the clan of Tubal Cain. Tubal Cain was one of the names for the horned god of the tradition, worshipped alongside the goddess Hecate. I've heard of her from a woods somewhere.
Yes, Clapham Woods.
Clapham Woods. Doreen was said to feel that Cochrane's rituals were closer to nature and more spontaneous than Gardner's. They wore robes instead of going naked and performed many of the ceremonies on the South Downs. Robert said of his tradition, "The witch belief is concerned with wisdom. Our true name, then, is the wise people, and wisdom is our aim." Cochrane seemed to dislike Gerald Gardner for his work, so much so that he and Doreen fell out over an argument in which she told him she was sick of listening to this senseless malice towards Gardnerians and left.
But covens weren't the only place to find the craft, even in the early days. Cecil Williamson was born in Devon in 1909 and spent his childhood either with relatives or at boarding school. As a young man, while staying with his grandmother in France, he was thrown in the occult equivalent of the deep end when he was asked to help officiate at some of the rituals, where it was Cecil's job to collect the semen and offer it to the altar, an experience that put him off ceremonial magic for life.
I bet it did.
You don't want to do magic? No? You had enough?
Yeah, I'm good. You're basically the occult equivalent of a fluffer, you know?
So in 1938, Cecil was recruited into MI6, partly because of his interest in the occult and partly because of his work in the film industry. His operations in MI6 seem to have been mostly in the field of propaganda and disinformation, including forging prophecies of Nostradamus and gathering information on German occultists.
That is so badass, seriously. I mean, if there's anything cooler than working for MI6 during World War II, it's working for them, like, doing occult stuff and trying to fool, like, you know, it's like first name terms with Indiana Jones kind of stuff.
Yeah, but to get there, he had to, like, collect semen.
This is true. It's like he gets in MI6 and there's just like a black couch. Anyway. Oh, Cecil, described as a natural collector, amassed all kinds of occult artifacts, and in 1947 attempts to open his first witchcraft museum. It did not go well. In fact, his first 5 attempts resulted in being forced to close down and move out of town, including one on the Isle of Man that he opened with Gerald Gardner. Some just ran out of money, but most were heavily persecuted. His attempts in the Cotswold ended when a Christian group hung a dead cat on the door and tried to burn the whole building down.
Oof.
I know, right? So
Oh yeah, we're the good guys. We're gonna hang a dead cat on your door.
Right?
The
But
fuck?
yeah, I know. It's we're gonna prove how you're horrible with your animal sacrifice and your, by killing an animal. It might have already been dead, but still. And then trying
Yeah,
to
they
burn
might
the
not have
place
killed
down.
it. Hmm.
Oh, giving that authentic medieval experience, I guess. Finally, though, in 1960, he found a disused warehouse in Boscastle, Cornwall, and created his last museum, which is still open today, holding more than 3,000 objects and 7,000 books.
I've been there.
Me too.
Yeah.
They've got the you see the lines on the wall downstairs where like the floodwaters got up to when it was flooded.
I
There's
think I did. It was quite a few years ago. I think I'm due another visit.
I think I need to go back as well. It's a bloody long way, but it's really good. They've got
Road
like
trip?
Alice, definitely. They got Alistair Crowley's his crystal ball and everything, haven't they? Um, but
Are
yeah,
they
I
open
think
in
so.
winter?
Pardon?
Are they open in the winter?
I think so, or maybe limited hours. Or
Because
we going
most of
to?
us are like most of us. You and me, most of
We're
us
quite
on the
busy in the
Wyrd
summer.
Wessex podcast, most of the crew on this podcast are busy in the summer. So I'm just thinking if they're open in the winter, we might do a road trip.
I'm definitely up for that. There's quite a few places. Oh mate, got to do an episode in Tintagel.
Not been
There's
there.
you've been or not been?
Not been.
It's worth it. It's fantastic.
I think we went to when we went to the Witchcraft Museum. I think we were staying in Westwood Ho,
Oh yeah,
and then we did a specific road trip down the coast to go to the Witchcraft Museum.
that's fair. If you're gonna make but yeah, I used to go on holiday a fair bit to Cornwall. It's steeped in folklore, man. Seriously, you kind of get the vibe. It's one of those places that, even though it's in England, it feels like its own country. It really does, with its own folklore and its own traditions. The fairies are still roaming the hills. The piskies.
Yeah.
They're not pixies. They're piskies.
I thought that's what you were calling the locals. I was going to say we best not go after you've been using those slurs.
It's definitely no. It's
Those
yeah.
fucking
Plus,
piskies.
it does sound like derogatory, doesn't it? And also, what's not to love about cream teas and the best pasties. Apologies to Devon.
Hang on, if you want to apologise to Devon, then is it cream or jam first?
Oh, I'm on the fence on that one. For me,
I'm not. It doesn't fucking matter, right? It's the same shit.
For me, it's cream and jam personally, but I'm not. That's what I mean about on the fence. So usually you get two sides to a scone. I will change it up. I'll do one Devon, one Cornwall.
Here's the thing, guys, right? If you put cream then jam, and then you put the lid on, if you turn it over, it's the other way around. And it makes no fucking difference.
Who puts the lid on, you crazy man?
Wiltshire people.
That's just like you got to dislocate your jaw like some anaconda to get it all in that way. Nah.
Is that not? Do you not do like the Beetlejuice thing?
People in Wiltshire, they can't speak for 3 days after eating a cream tea because the jaw's just descended, hanging down. But at least they got to have their cream tea in neither one way nor the other, sandwich out that scone. I get it.
Is that where I've been going wrong? I've been making a sandwich.
Oh, I'm going to start talking about Cecil again now. None of your cream tea shenanigans. Cecil described himself as both a professional witchcraft consultant and a showman. He was a solitary magical practitioner who nevertheless spent years seeking out artifacts, and stories of others, finding particular fascination with the wayside magic of the West Country, and his work still inspires pagans and folk witches worldwide.
If you were hanging around in the New Forest in the 50s and early 60s, you might have been familiar with Britain's most famous witch, Sybil Leek. Sybil owned several shops in the area. The Coven of Witches in Burley is still going, and was a bit of a tourist attraction herself. Often seen roaming the woods in her long black coat with her jackdaw familiar, Hotfoot Jackson, perched on her shoulder. Sybil was the first president of the Witchcraft Research Association. She knew both Cecil Williamson and Gardner, but seemed to have preferred the solitary craft to coven life. It is said that she disapproved of all the nudity, and that she reserved the right to curse people when she thought it was necessary. She claimed to also have been recruited by the Secret Service to create fake horoscopes for the German forces. Sybil left the New Forest in the 60s after her landlord refused to renew her lease. Locals had been complaining, calling her a fraud and a joke. And it's after her move to America that she really became Britain's most famous witch, doing TV work as a psychic, paranormal investigations, and horoscopes for Hollywood stars.
I've always been quite fond of the Sybil Leek story. She had a house in and a shop in Ringwood as well for a little while, and somewhere else as well, as you said. But I think, the one in Burley. Have you been to Burley before?
Don't think so.
Definitely worth a visit. I mean, I've mentioned here before that I do want to do a New Forest episode, so we'll definitely stop by Burley when we do that. Good fudge there as well. But there's a lot of love for her in that town. I think she's quite a sort of like local celebrity, even though she's sort of long dead now. But
do you know what? That was going to be my next question. Is she still around? Because 50s and 60s, she could have been.
Yeah, sadly not. Sadly not. She died a while back, and she was in the States. She'd moved back to the States at that point. But really interesting character. Apparently, there's this big tradition of sort of Romany sort of travelers in the New Forest for hundreds of years, like literally since like late medieval period, moving around the New Forest. And it's a whole thing. They started trying to stop them doing it, and so they kept changing the law, and so the Romani kept changing their tactics of evading people, and they sort of came up with new routes through the forest. And they had it was amazing. They had like bender huts and things like that. They just like use these secret trackways and pop up and live for a while and then go on. But apparently, now I thought they were all gone at that point, but apparently there was still a community there in the 50s and 60s, and Sybil stayed with them for a while and learnt some of their magic, or so the story goes.
Mm.
So, could probably do an episode on her at some point. But for the here and now, and actually for the 2021 census, because that said almost 100,000 English people put themselves down as some kind of pagan, and some experts think the real number might be closer to 250,000, based on other surveys and the number of people who regularly attend pagan-themed events and things like that. In the south of England, pagan festivals held at Glastonbury, Avebury, Stonehenge have become a unique part of British culture.
We covered one ourselves.
Indeed we did. Yeah, we went to that Beltane. I mean, you get that all over the country. I mean, you look the Beltane celebrations and the Samhain celebrations up in Edinburgh, for example. And even if people who all go there aren't pagan, they're taking part in that pagan event, that pagan tradition, that ritual.
We're luring them in, Andy.
So there's other sites such as the Rollright Stones in Stanton, Drew, and West Kennet Long Barrow. They're regularly used by modern pagans for rituals and celebrations. And it's all over the country, absolutely all over the country.
Yeah, so the next time you're wandering the wide chalk down lands of the south and come across a circle of witches, don't worry, there's almost certainly no need to check for extra teats.
Unless you're invited to. But I mean,
check my teats, Andy.
I told you last time, no. There's it is one of those things that is growing and growing. Even from and like I grew up knowing some witchy people, but it's gotten so much bigger. Um, it's really interesting. I think it's a combination of counterculture and the fact that people are yearning, I think, for that return to nature in a sense.
Yeah.
Even if they don't want to go and actually live in a cabin in the woods, they want to feel like they could. They want to feel that connection again. And I get it. I mean, and you and I, we're quite well placed in our jobs, like in our day jobs. To we sort of all weekend jobs, whatever. We meet a lot of these people. You know,
Yeah.
um, I think it's yeah, that sort of the heritage and folklore, that aspect of culture, it very much does attract someone that is into that. And I mean, you you've not been to Glastonbury, the town of Glastonbury yet, have you? Or have you? And you haven't been on the tour?
Yeah, no, I've been to
You haven't
Glastonbury. I
been
just
on the
haven't been
tour.
to
That was it.
Samhain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, that's a prime example of just that town is more pagan than any other religion or culture there.
Yeah, but I think as well, like we've talked about it in this episode, right? I mean, part of that comes down to the persecution in the early days, and now the lack of persecution means that people are coming back out again.
Yeah. Mm. I
For a
mean,
long time, if you admitted you were following these things, you would have been potentially tried as a witch. Now you can do
well,
that.
until very recently, you might have a dead cat like hung outside your door and have your building burned down. I mean that
Yeah.
happened once in Glastonbury. I think they were Americans, but I don't know. Um, there was a group of evangelical Christians went and started. I think they damaged a few shops and one of the temples there. But other than that, they have like multi faith services there between like the churches and the Buddhist temple there and the pagan temples. It's a pretty
Yeah.
accepting place. But as you say, like until very recently, you would have been attacked for that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do think things like The Craft and Buffy have played their part in making us all feel a bit more normal around it. Uh,
Oh, it's popular culture, right? I mean,
yeah,
that leads everything. So
but
yeah, Buffy in the 90s led the way, I guess.
I think I had a big part of it. I think I had a big part of it. Yeah, no, I mean, I've had some fantastic times. Like at, I don't go to many ceremonies of any sort of denomination or anything like that, but I've always enjoyed the pagan ones I've been to. Um, whether it is kind of a softer one like the Beltane celebrations at Butser, where it's more of it's an event but with that kind of theme running through it, or sort of Ellie's Turn of the Wheel events at the Ancient Technology Centre.
Yeah.
But I have been to the Dorset Groves Samhain celebration as well, which was brilliant, but it was very serious, and I don't mean that as a knock, but it was very serious and very long, and I didn't really expect it to be as long as it was. And it was great, it really was. But when they were passing around the cake and ale, instead of ale, they had this sort of bottle of orange stuff, and I thought, oh, they're doing orange juice because there's probably some kids here or something, and neck it. It's orange and vodka. I don't know why they chose to replace ale with orange and vodka, but
Wow.
it's one of those things like an event of like nearly 100 people all passing around a bottle and drinking from it. Post COVID, you wouldn't really see that anymore, would you?
There's a few things I've been to where people still pass the bottle.
Okay.
Yeah, it does still go on, but yeah, maybe a bit more reluctant.
But yeah, I mean, it's such a deep subject, the witchcraft thing and witches in England, that, even with this, sort of the script that Emma's very, sort of brilliantly done for us, we're only still touching the surface. So it's something I'd personally like to go into in a little more depth, like aspects of it later on.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a few elements I wouldn't mind kind of delving a bit deeper into, I guess. Like
yeah,
this is a
maybe.
good review.
Yeah,
It's a starter point, but we'll come back to witches again, I'm sure. I mean, we have to.
absolutely. Mate, yeah, and maybe get a couple of people on the podcast and, have a chat. Hopefully not be cursed.
Yeah. So if you're a witch and you want to come on the podcast,
Yeah, please let us know. Please let us know. So yeah, it's have you got any weird news for us?
No.
Oh, good. Didn't want to do it anyway.
Haven't used this source for a while, but I've got a story from the Metro.
Ah, the Metro.
Yeah. And again, as usual, I found this a few minutes before we recorded. So I've only read the headline, but people have some questions about the 188-year-old man that was found living in a cave.
I think I would as well.
Yeah. So a video of a frail man in India who was allegedly 188 years old and rescued from a cave went viral this week. The clip shows two young men helping the elderly individual who is very thin and wearing only a loincloth walk over some rocks and along some steps. A user called Concerned Citizen shared the video on X, where it's had about 30 million views. He wrote, "This Indian man has just been found in a cave. It's alleged he's 188 years old. Insane." Again, I'm quoting. The beard man is bent over holding a stick. Does indeed look pretty old, but is he 188? Unsurprisingly, several people questioned the claim, including X, which posted a disclaimer underneath that read misinformation. The elderly man is a Hindu saint named Sriram Baba, who lives in Madhya Pradesh in India. According to reports, he is about 110. That's pretty good, though, right?
Yeah, I mean that is damn good.
I mean, it's not 188.
No, but you know, it's on the way to 188, I guess. Just
He's
like
on
we
the
all
way,
are, I
yeah.
suppose. But he's
I'm
closer.
getting there.
I
I
can
don't know.
tell.
These days, I'm feeling it. Yeah, the disclaimer cited a Navrat Times article from July 2nd this year as its sources. The article says many stories about Sriram Baba are famous in the region. It is said that he performed penance while standing on one leg for 10 years. Even at the age of 109, Baba reads the Ramayana without glasses and does all his work by himself. Baba speaks very little, yet devotees still flock to seek his blessings. Sriram Baba is a saint residing in the Beatan Ashram, located on the banks of the... Why do we do this to ourselves? We always pick the ones with the really hard pronunciation.
It'll be Wales
Sorry.
tomorrow.
Oh. We do our best, guys. All right. So the Narmada River in Kargong district in the Madhya Pradesh.
Close enough.
Oh, have you got a picture? Have you seen a picture? Should I bring one up?
Yes, please. Oh wow, that just looks like some floppy skin. That's
I don't know what's going on. I mean, he's got orange feet. So anyway, it says, while no one knows his exact age, it is believed he's around 109 or 110.
an impressive age, you know.
It does say some people claim he is as old as 130. However, and this I think is quite a big disclaimer, Baba himself has never provided any information regarding his actual age. Fact-checking website D-Intent Data also said claims the man was 180 were untrue.
I think the oldest ever man was 116, and the oldest ever woman was 122, I think. Hang on. Yes, Jean Calment from France, who was born in 1875 and died in 1987.
Okay. So what have you got, Andy?
Feline scared. Leopards lair inside metal pipe filled with rotting sheep carcasses in the UK countryside as fears over big cat grow. A big cat hunter says that the animals look like it was savaged. But essentially, no, it's covering now. I've got opinions on this. I think, to me, this looks like they may have
Hey, no,
rotted.
we don't. What kind of show do you think this is? We don't give opinions.
Okay, we just give the facts as reported by the Sun. So, big cat hunter Darren Tinsley has stumbled across the den in an abandoned metal pipe. So he thinks it's a leopard's lair. And it goes on to show some pictures of some animals that have clearly missing a lot of their insides. The bones are clean, but there's skin on the other side. So the bones all appear to have been licked clean by a suspected leopard. Half-eaten sheep carcasses were strewn inside this tunnel,
Unconclusive.
while other remains nearby were discovered in similar conditions. The 40-year-old said that the skin had been peeled back and the bones licked clean of flesh. He believes the creature responsible could be a leopard or a puma prowling around Frodisham near Runcorn in Cheshire. He said they all look like they have been savaged. All the bodies look like a cat had torn the skin back and eaten it from the insides out. And all the skin had been cleaned off like they'd been licked off by a big cat. There are a few carcasses
Inconclusive.
inside and around the pipe. There are others around a tree at the end of the field, easy place for a cat to kill and eat them without being noticed. He claims to have witnessed 5 big cat sightings in over 28 years. My first one is in 1997, then 1999, but I didn't see another until around 2014. It was a close-up, just meat as well, got a good look, and then again in 2015 and 16, but that was the last time. I've not seen one since. When I saw one up close, it confirmed it for me, so I know that I saw it every other time. I've been obsessed since. And it goes on to just talk about big cat sightings. Leading wildcat expert Rick Minter said that he's personally heard of 1,400 credible accounts, but believes they're just the tip of the iceberg as most go unreported. But that's about it on that one. But looking at the pictures, and I'm not going to share them because they're pretty gross, but looking at the pictures, I remember walking down a place called Hartham in Hertford, and there was this lump of something in the river when I was walking over the bridge. And I worked out it was a badger that had died in the water. I think it was a badger. And essentially, it kind of looked like that. The exposed stuff had all the bones were gone, the skin was gone, but under the water, it kind of almost preserved. And these sheep look to me like they may have just been died, fallen down into this pipe, got swept down, and just part of it had rotted and part of it didn't. That's kind of what they look like to me. So I don't know. I will follow up with that though on the article from the Cumberland News, which says searches for big cats in the UK on the internet have gone up 49% after someone in Cumbria thought they saw a mother and a cub in the countryside. So yeah, but apparently that's part of a trend. So more people are researching big cats, for better or worse.
Because we keep searching for them.
Yes, that's it. That is the trouble. That is the trouble. It's possibly just Wyrd Wessex responsible for this.
So you can follow us on social media. We are at Wyrd Wessex, WYRD Wessex. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. You can find our merch on the Redbubble store, where you can get the Cernabus Giant, currently with a pumpkin head, to the end of the month. And you can join the Facebook group, The Cult of the Weird, if you want to join the conversation. What have we got coming up next week, Andy?
We actually have a guest coming along from Cranbourne Chase, which is round here, talking about the ghosts and the folklore and the tales of Cranbourne Chase. That is Angela, who's going to be joining us. So, yeah, definitely tune in for that one. It'll be a good one.
It's quite handy.
It is.
That's a future reference. That'll make sense next week, guys.
It will. It will. Get down. You don't come in until next week.
On that note, stay weird.
Until next time. God damn it, Craig.